Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this webinar on CBAM, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. This is organized by Bharat Carbon. Thank you all for taking out the time to join us today. We have an insightful session lined up for you. I'm Shaila Khan, and I will be the coordinator for today's session. Yes, over to you, Krishna, for taking us through the entire step-by-step journey and the platform as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Is my screen visible? Shala?
Yes, it is, Krishna.
Yeah, and thank you so much for providing any deep insights about the CBAM and specific amendment, and also Bharat Carbon platform. The panel has provided very great insights. So now I will just explain the practical and statistical perspective of the how CBAM. So we're going to do, and at the end of this, I'm gonna completely give an how the CBAM reporting works. As Tanish mentioned, we had a Bharat Carbon Advanced AI engine driven, ESG platform. So I'll show you the live demonstration. So I'll start with the presentation now. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. So we apologize for any delay which was caused earlier. So we'll start immediately. So today I will walk you through around the CBAM and not talk about what actually it means for your business. And there is a lot of jargon for SMEs. There is a lot of regulatory complexity, and frankly there is a lot of confusion out there. So our goal in this session is to make it clear, make it simple, practical and actionable. So we'll start with the three things here: what the CBAM is and why it matters, and how the reporting process actually works, and most importantly how your organization should think about this strategically, and not as a singly compliant oriented aspect. So I'll set the context. So this is the agenda I'm going to speak. So I'll give a brief introduction about the CBAM and why the global trade is shifting because of it, understanding the CBAM and what is the carbon leakage, and specific amended emissions. I'll talk in the specifically direct, what is a direct and indirect. And there is most of the companies choose default values and actual emissions. I'll walk through this also. And end-to-end CBAM process I'll explain, and what will be the implication approaches any company can do, what is the common challenges and what is the solutions, and what would be the common pitfalls on the mistake that any exporter do, and see why the CBAM is a competitive advantage. So I'll just briefly tell you what is the CBAM. So basically, let's start with the basic. What is a CBAM? So CBAM stands for a carbon border adjust mechanism. It's a regulatory, it's a regulation compliance actually introduced by European Union that places a carbon pricing on your import of a carbon intense goods. So the idea is straightforward. If you are importing to EU, your product need to face a carbon cost as the goods produced within a Europe. So it ensures the level playing for the same for European buyers. So what is the purpose? The core reason for CBAM exists is that we known as a carbon leakage. So that's when European companies shift to very less regulated country. So the CBAM is built for to prevent this carbon leakage. So what sectors are covered? There is a six sectors which are highly emitter sectors. So cement, iron and steel, aluminium, fertilizer, and there's electricity and hydrogen. So it was initially started as a timeline. Initially there was only reporting phase, that what we call as a transitional phase, October 22 and till 22. Now we had already entered in a defined phase, so it became now a mandatory, and there is a financial liability from January 1st. So why the global shift? How because of this, or why the global shift is happening? So I'll start with a cost to carbon. For decades, trade was all about finding an affordable suppliers, optimizing the logistics. So the equation is changing right now because carbon efficiency is now becoming as important as a cost in determining where and how the goods are coming from which border. So that was becoming one of the significant trade identifier. So, and second is an embedded carbon footprint. Every product now carries a carbon footprint, and markets started to demand a visibility into these numbers. If you cannot measure your emission transparently, you are going to face a risk of losing that specific EU market. So it became one of the another significant factor. So transparent and traceability is what it requires, and competing on this carbon. So this means companies are not just competing on a price and quality anymore. They are competing on a carbon intensity. The demand for real innovation and also decarbonization, as Mr. Dr. Biniwala is saying, that we need to go for a low carbon solutions. So this is the counting on this carbon. And next is in a carbon leakage concern. One of the core reasons CBAM exists is because of the carbon leakage, which I was mentioned previously. So this carbon leakage must be prevented because of domestic players are shifting to the globally. So this one thing. Just 1 second. So next is in a market incentive. So the low carbon products will be favored by the investor, because end of the day your importer has to pay this ETS certificates they need to buy and all. So they try to prefer the importer who has this low carbon, and also regulatory impact. So this right now it is up to 26 sectors. So soon it is going to be shifted to multiple high emission industries and sectors also. So that's why how you need to shift. So global trade is shifting because of this CBAM. So this is the must you need to consider when you are planning on importing to any CBAM goods to any Europe. So understanding of a CBAM mechanism. So first I'll just walk through, since we already addressed. So linked to ETS. So what happened when the CBAM was introduced? Because domestic players are shifting to the low regulatory areas. That's why it was introduced to create a level filling ground. Even if you are producing in Europe, you are liable to your products for a carbon emissions, and also if you are importing from another country, you will still able. So because of this, we can address easily the carbon leakage and also specific emissions. So I think these are already covered previously. I'll quickly move to the next slide. So in embedded emissions, there is a two type of emissions. One is a direct emission. Second is an indirect emission. Indirect emissions are generally from the production process and operations. Example, when you are a steel factory, there is a fuel consumption in your furnace, that related emissions in your manufacturing process that are. So these are basically measured at a facility level, closely linked to your product activities. So key for understanding footprint is on-site emissions. So direct emissions, as generally we can call it as an on-site emissions also. There is another emission called as an indirect emission. Indirect emissions associated with the purchase of energy consumption, mainly in electricity. So these uses the grid factors basically, or energy mix factor, depends on what actually the certification process you are using. If you are using an renewable source of energy, PPA certifications and all these comes under the specific emissions, indirect emissions. So it captures the upstream emissions, basically in energy input to produce. So is a critical for the product full product level carbon assessment. So there is a two actually the emission values we need to see. When we started, when any SMEs or anything, they start with the default values. Basically, default values is already predetermined values per industry. You need not to have any complex data to do started. Everything need to be collected. You just need to enter your basic production rate, and basic details need to be filled, and all the calculations will be done. Only the downside of this is the carbon footprint using default values is significantly higher, up to 2 to 3x higher than actual emissions. So when you started, most of the companies use default values since they don't have any resources. So this is a limitation for using any default values. And there is another emissions, actually actual emissions. This is where actually in a very critical, and even European buyers mainly focus on this specific part. So they also need actual emissions reports. If you are importing in huge quantities. So these actually requires in a lot of practice. You need to have an extensive, robust data collection system and data validation processes also. Till you need to identify what emission factors as per your industry, as per your, selected as a task. So this will be in a very extensive. So this is the most preferred. End of the day, companies need to adopt this actual emissions. So basically, this now I'll tell what the end-to-end CBAM reporting looks like. First, you need to identify your HSN code or CNN code products listed in a European Union CBAM guidelines. Then you need to define in a boundary of what data you are collecting, and also you need to start in a activity data collection. So then you need to do, after you collecting data, there is a two type of calculations you need to do. One starts within a direct emissions, as it is on-site emissions. These are mostly indirect emissions, can be considered as an energy emissions to produce in a product. Once you do that, after that you need to allocate emissions to the product. Then compile CBAM data. So after you do all these calculations, you need to compile as in a report data. Then after that you need to submit to get an verified auditor. As Dr. Prasad is saying that there is a lot of people and verification became mandatory. You buyers specifically have or certain format or maybe certain accredited this auditor. So we need to get our all the documents audited by. Then we will submit the record and we will maintain that record for a further process. So I'll just briefly tell one by one how in detail. So identifying CBAM cover. So basically there is almost 78 CN codes aligned within a CBAM regulation based on your country, and also there are few countries which are exempted, so that need to be considered. So once you selected the CN code, so the product scope was already determined. If you are going for any CBAM template or anything, it was clearly mentioned. So that after that you need to coordinate with your importers to align with the product classification and also reporting requirements. So because it is very critical, because if you are choosing in a wrong CN code, it can lead to an unnecessary misclassification and also reporting challenges. So you need to consider this as a high priority, because whole process of CBAM depends on the CNN code alignment. So after that you need to define your boundaries. So you need to identify all your installations involving the CBAM coverage. Since all the CBAM, let's say if you are having any 10 installations, the CBAM code what you produce only 5 in industry, 5 factories, those 5 comes under this. This is what the identification of all these installations. Defining the process. So let's say if you are using any of the processes, you need to select what process of what processes you're using. For example, if you are going for an iron and steel, you need to select any sinister ore or pig ore, what processes you have, what kind of installation at what stage, that need to be addressed here using in a bubble approach or a standalone approach. Then there is a data ownership need to be assigned for responsibility for data collection and reporting. So once this was all set the clear reporting responsibility, accountability, and you need to ensure what timely submission need to be done. So there is a collection activity data. So here comes the collectivity collection data. So this is the biggest challenge for any of the companies. So most of this process is an manual process, and it requires a lot of data validation and data, verification parts. So it requires huge ton of time. So the company who streamline this process will have a significant upper edge in the next or rest of the steps. So what we need to collect? We need to collect all the records, including the proofs, invoices, and all for natural gases or any fuel which was used in a produce, and track the electrical consumption across all the mills or any operations that was involved. Measure each one individually to get the amended data, and link that to an output volumes to ensure this completely avoid the gaps. Let's say when I was saying bubble approach and standalone approach is a effective method to avoid the gaps and also errors in your reporting. So next is a calculate direct emissions. The fuel consumption primarily comes from natural gas, coal, or any other on-sites. So these comes under the on-sites basically, and emission result from chemical and physical transformation. These also comes under this. Emission factors and approved methodology guide need to be selected specifically when you are doing, because wrong selection of emission factor and a methodology will lead to a significant increasing of your carbon emissions, specific amended emissions, that will lead to rejection of your product from your buyer. So this is a very significant step you need to consider. So next is an indirect emission. So basically these are energy production, consumption which was you are doing. So most of the companies, what very steel and very big companies do, they had this renewable plants which was already kept. They used a PPA agreement for existing vendors, and they use that as an indirect emission. So that gives them upper edge to reduce this indirect emission. So company with scale or maybe with a small scale can also adopt this, since the central government is also providing a huge number of subsidies for this. So this can be considered for that. And also here also you need to select that grid factor, which is very significant. If you are buying or importing your energy from any other countries also, their national wise grid factors also need to be considered. No selection of this methodology also here plays in a very critical and very important role. So this is the step 5. I'll quickly move to step 6. So once you had done all the calculations, you need to allocate to the specific product. So assign, let's say if your the company produces this aluminum and steel and fertilizer, so you need to use all the calculated data. You need to assign to the specific product. So that is where actually we can use different methods for mass based or energy based or in a production based steps. So multiple facility carefully we need to be distorted when you are calculating these emissions, and these need to be correctly mapped. So compile product level CBAM data. Once you had already collected data given assigned to the specific embedded emissions for the specific product, and you need to consolidate all the data, and also directly, indirectly involved, you need to prepare a reporting field as per the CBAM guidelines. So CBAM guidelines specifically here, there is a two type of a CBAM guidelines is a standard that need to be followed. When you're feeding in a data, there is a two type of a methods you can do. One is an XML format, which you can use in a CBAM official template. So that is a standard used by everyone. But if your importer is requesting any specific format, because the CBAM template is recommended, not mandatory. So you can use your own, this importers template as per their, they are going to file their in this ETS portal. So there is a two types. One is CBAM template, and the second is your importer format that need to be collected here. And there is a review. Once it was done, you need to go for any specific auditor, accredited auditor from your buyer perspective, and also that need to be get verified with all the data emission calculations methodology and everything. So most important thing for any auditor is having a pre-audit reporting. So that is very significant, since you will be managing a lot of data manually. This becomes very huge challenge for you to access and provide all the audit trails. So this need to be ensured by building in a traceability models in your organization. So that gives very smooth and hassle-free auditing. So that need to be considered. So once you had found all the data verified certification, you need to provide all these data to your importer. So importer can use this data to fill in the ETS filing. So they will do it. And also you need to retain all these documents in case if you are asked to provide maybe for second audit for next year, these records will be verified again. And also for if you are importing anything, most of the buyers sometimes use for what's your previous record data need to be shared sometimes. So keeping in a record is very this gives you an control over your data management system. Let's say if you are doing everything in a manual way, so if your business grows significantly, if you want to do automation the system. So with such a big tools and Bharat Karma, like you can directly dump your all data here and it will map everything for you. I'll just show you that also. So how to approach? First, assess and prepare. Everything need to be, you need to conduct a comprehensive gap analysis whether you are ready for a CBAM regulation at this point of a time. If not, first initially you need to map everything and conduct and get prepared. So next is a defined ownership. So you need to state all your clear responsibilities, have a meetings internally, define a ownership for each person. Let's say if you are any HR team or any finance team that handles your billing aspects, you need to give an ownership for them to provide all the energy bills related to this to the sustainability department or maybe compliance department. So, and second thing, as I said, you need to have a huge database, build a database framework that need to be standardized. So this gives let's say if you are collecting a data from 10 facilities, there is a more than 50 people who are managing this data. So this centralized data bulk framework will help you to organize, capture, and all the emissions accurately. So since you are just doing this, you need to have an upgraded IT systems to automate this report. This would be and initially it would be an friction for most of the industries. So once you started using this, it will be so convenient for any companies who are expanding rapidly. To ensure the audit readiness, once you build all these four systems, so audit ready will comes follow as because of these four things. So this will be automatically inbuilt in your systems. So key challenges, how to overcome. As I said, the data availability is very big challenge. Limited access to emissions and activity level data. So most of the companies they had a whole data. Available for the whole facility, but not specifically the product. So you need to have a invest in data, robust data collection system and partnership to improve this, and complex calculations since you are using an Excel. So managed by 50 people, it will be very hard for you to track, and there is a no maker and checker system. So it creates a lot of ambiguity in your data. So it becomes so complicated to do calculations. So since the CBAM has a standard of 50 plus tons is a huge data itself. So develop any clear calculation protocol you need to do and specialize the tools for accuracy. Data inconsistency. Let's say if there is a 50 people who are there managing data, there is multiple data quality verification that need to be done. And also there is a over reliance on a default values. So you need to shift immediately to the build in a system to have this actual data emissions. Lack of ownership, you need to assign the roles and responsibilities for your team. So common mistakes, the CBAM people think as that as in a one-time complaint, but it's not. It's in a repeating process. Incorrect cross calculation. So you need to select the correct CNN codes. Over reliance on the default values, you need to shift this immediately to the actual values. Ignoring indirect emissions. Indirect emissions for a very big companies becomes a big, the huge number on huge factor. You need cannot ignore. And second is in a pure data management, and there you need to have in a node data trial. So most people think that data trial is not required as in, but most of the cases it is becoming very mandatory for all your regulatory compliance. So beyond compliance, you need to think and proactively engage your organizations on competitive advantage since the low carbon your product is and more streamline your process. Then you had a competitive edge, link ESG to your decarbonization, and earlier moving gets benefited. And thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Krishna, for walking us through the product and how the CBAM happens. Since we are running out of time, I would pause and take up the Q&A session first. And definitely for the Bharat Carbon product, we'll be displaying the QR, which the attendees can use. And get in touch with us. We will give you an entire product walkthrough over there. Yeah, thank you so much. On the screen, attendees, you can see QR, which you can scan for the product demo directly. And also you can get in touch with us. You can reach out to us at bharatcarbon.earth website. You can explore that as well. I'll open the round for the Q&A session. What I can see in the Q&A, I can see two questions. I will take those first. Then I will allow the users if they want to ask the questions verbally as well. I will just read out the first questions and I will assign that to one of our speakers and they can answer that for the attendees. So the first question is, once the accounting is done, how many levels of verification does my company need to do before I submit the report? Do I need verification from EU accreditors also? And how does that work? I guess this question best aligns with Mr. Dr. Prasad Ramachandran. If you can take that question. And if you want me to repeat, I'll repeat the
Yeah,
question.
thanks, Shaila. Thanks for this question. I think, I mean, when we talk about the accreditors, there are like approved EU-based accreditors, somewhere 8 to 12, I would say, and they are. I mean, the it has to be one of these eight for sure. And this is like layers of auditing. I mean, it all depends on. There is only one layer of obviously when it is audited, reported, and verified, and that document need to be submitted to the EU CBAM, EU importer CBAM authority. And once this is like, for instance, when it comes from Bureau Veritas or TUV Sud or something like that, then it's obviously like you are crossing almost every step in terms of verification process. Yeah, but how you get into that EU importer, how you get into that verification, that verified document to EU importer, that is the challenge.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Prasad. Hope that answers the question. I would quickly move ahead to the next question I'm able to see on the chat, which is, if I'm an Indian exporter, do I need to register in the EU ETS portal as well? I guess, Krishna, Mr. Krishna, you will be really good to answer that. I'll hand this question to you. Should I repeat the question?
No, not necessarily. I think most of the exporters need to submit their data to importers. So importer will be liable to report in this EU ETS portal. So not required.
Okay. Okay, great. Uh, okay, if anyone else wants to write the questions in the Q&A, you are please feel free to write that. Now, I would allow the attendees, if you someone wants to unmute themselves and ask the question to our panelists directly, the session is open for Q&A. You guys can also write the questions in the Q&A section. I'll take it up from there. Okay. If not, then moving ahead, since we are running short on time, you guys can definitely get in touch with us for asking any questions and everything. As we wrap up, let me leave you with three key takeaways from the today's session. First is CBAM is not a future concern. The Indian exporters need to act now to remain competitive in the EU. Second, accurate carbon accounting, particularly the embedded emissions and the product carbon footprint, is the foundation of compliance. So, getting your data right is not negotiable. Third, Bharat Carbon's platform is a purpose built to simplify this journey from data collection to audit ready reporting so you can focus on your business while staying compliant. So, if you would like to see the platform in action, we will be sharing a demo link in the chat as well. Please do sign up, and our team will be very happy to walk you through it. You can also reach out to us at www.bharatcarbon.earth for any follow up queries. Okay. On behalf of the entire Bharat Carbon team, I would like to thank our incredible speakers, Dr. Prasad Ramchandran, Dr. Rajesh Biniwale, Mr. Tanish Shivani, and Mr. Krishna Vadlamudi for sharing their expertise today. And most importantly, thank you each and every one of you for attending the session. Your engagement made this session truly valuable. We look forward to support you on your sustainability journey. Until next time, stay compliant, stay competitive, and stay carbon conscious. Thank you and have a great day.